All right, it's Throwback Thursday, so what better time than the flashback to this past month? Or was it a month ago? It was 2 months ago almost. Yeah, about like June, where my job tried to get back at me for being on jury duty. Now, for people who don't live in the United States, jury duty is where you are randomly selected to be part of a jury of 12 people in a case or a trial. And when you don't show up to jury duty, this might not be applicable for every state, but this is certainly how it is for mine. You can face fines, imprisonment, charges of contempt of court. It's something that the only way to really get out of it is if you have some really good excuse, like you're very sick and you have a doctor's note, obviously, or you're in some kind of coma. I mean, it is a very difficult thing to get away from. And I'm one of the people where I've never had to technically do it, even as someone that was on call. But I'm kind of like willing to do it, even if people make it sound like it's so horrible. Um, so I was selected for it toward the latter part of June, and they have a thing what's called being on call for 2 weeks. And what you do is you go on the website for jury duty, and you look for about 3 days straight each week to see if you're going to be used that week. So you'll look on, I think it was Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and then you'll know that you're not being used that week for jury duty. And then you come back on the Sunday of the following week, right? It's about 4 or 5 days later, to see if you're going to be used for that second week. And if you're not used for that second week, then you're just done. That's what happened with me, where I was on call, I didn't get used. So that was there was no like worry or concern about being, in trouble. I was only making sure that I showed up, one, because I don't want to be in trouble, and two, because if it's starting at, I think it was 6 in the morning, I have to get up a lot earlier than I normally do. So concurrently with me being on call, I was still applying for jobs, and I would never mention to them that I was on jury duty, or was on call for jury duty, because the vast majority of places I apply to don't hire me. So it's not something that would come up unless a place really seemed like they were serious about trying to get me started or to begin or whatever. Now, I did my hire to fire strikes again video on that horrendous delivery driver job. And, we could talk about the insanity of working somewhere where after 2 shifts, they want you to know how to do everything that someone else can do. But then after the second shift, they're stretching it out to be almost 2 weeks before they even use you again, which is going to make it harder to retain what you learned the first 2 days. Just all the ways you're set up to fail, in my opinion. And the fact that like they rush through so many employees that they don't give you a uniform until after the first month, because they just fire or have so many people quit that it became a literal waste of money to even properly put you in attire as someone that works for them. But before you start working for these clowns, they have you do training, which is like written exams, watching videos, etc. And I told the recruiter that I was on jury duty. I had to look on the website to make sure, because they always post it around 7 or 8 p.m. that night of what your status will be the following day, right? So like if you're going to be used on Tuesday, you'll know by 7 or 8 p.m. the night before if you're going to be used that following day. So I go and I look, and it says that I'm not going to be used. And I say, hey, my jury duty is finished. What time is training tomorrow? Hi, I filled the spot tomorrow. I can have you on, July 2nd, 3rd if you're available. So this is what I found so interesting, and I was trying to talk with my relatives about this. You are aware as the employer that I have jury duty. You've seen proof of this, whatever. And your response to that is to close up the final slot for the day before I was made available. So like within the few hours it would take for me to tell him, hey, I'm not available. I'm available tomorrow. My jury duty's finished. He was able to fill the slot. And that's kind of like an interesting thing I find about these jobs, where they have almost like a bipolar thing with them, where sometimes they will sound like they're so desperate, right? In terms of, you drive away from this place, the guy's calling you, trying to get you to start up the onboarding process after an interview with like 5, 6, 7, 8 people. And then he tells you, we've already filled up your slot. And then when you actually go to the training, they were supposed to have 8 people there on that day that I ended up, being part of the crap, and they only had 5 people show up. And then you get the mention of how they, don't even give people uniform for a month. So it's just interesting how these jobs in one breath will sound like they really need people, and then will still do stuff that shows how nitpicky and, just backwards they are. But really think about this. His response to me possibly not being available the next day because of jury duty is to delay my uses. And remember, it's not like, oh, I messaged them at 9, 10, 11, 12 p.m. or 1 a.m. the next. We're talking about early in the afternoon, and in just a few hours later, oh, this is no longer available. Now, I really kind of want to just keep hammering this home. When a job wants me to show up for a shift, if they give me, at least a heads up from the night before, 99% of the time I have no issue. The only time I've not shown up for work is if I physically cannot get there, my car breaks down, tire explodes, etc. But in this scenario, you're talking about someone who who possibly cannot go to their training because of a government required mandate that they are on call for 2 weeks for jury duty, where if they were to buck attending jury duty in the event that they were selected, they could face fines, prison time, contempt of court charges. And your response to that is to go, okay, well, I'm gonna make you not be available for the day where you will turn out to be available in just a few hours from now. Nothing but punishment for trying to follow the law. And this relative was like, oh, well, they don't care. It's like, yeah, but you're really missing the point. We're supposed to have laws on the books that an employer cannot punish you for going on jury duty, right? I didn't pick to serve at all. They just send you threatening mail in your inbox. Hey, you need to come, or you're available for this starting this day, that day, whatever. So we're talking about a prospective employer who finds out that you might not be available for a few days, who would rather just go and fill that slot with some other person to kind of like demonstrate, see, we don't need you. Go on your jury duty. Go ahead and serve for the court. We don't need to see you tomorrow. Like, what the hell? I'm telling you, man, there comes a point where, like, I know jobs, they treat employees like utter garbage. This is why most of them do the part-time thing, so we don't qualify for, benefits that would be befitting of an actual human being, right? Health insurance. But you really have to ask yourself, isn't there something wrong when an employer can only see these dollar signs in terms of who they can get started faster than who, and they will antagonize or punish an employee in response to something that they are required by law to do? Like, I don't know, to me, it sounds like there is, we were talking about like the normal parameters of just employers. They see us as bodies. They, again, don't want to half pay people or use people or whatever, all the different stuff with being part-time employees and terrible working conditions. But really ask yourself this: if you can get punished by an employer for doing something required under the law for you to do, which makes you possibly unavailable for work for at a maximum 2 weeks, there's not something wrong with that? Tell you, they can always find some slick way to get around having any semblance of humanity for the people that are working for them or trying to work for them. And I guess that's really where the technicality came in, where since I wasn't an employee yet, right, they were able to be like, oh, well, see, we don't have to schedule them for this day or that, because that's why the whole like part-time employee, just employers have way too much power when it comes to being able to use you on this day or not use you on that day. And this is a good example of that, where you are going to delay using this person in such a like quick rate over something that they can't get out of, and then they have to just go along with it if they want to work this job. And I guess what kills me is that I was so excited to start training for that place, just to get a shift where they just throw me in a van, right, going around delivering stuff with no training whatsoever, Then they have a few people come out and assist. Then they delete me for like the next 3 days, then use me again. Then they admit I improved, but it's still not enough apparently. Then you don't get used for almost 2 weeks, and then they're talking about if you don't improve by this next shift, we're gonna have a conversation. Just it's sad to think that you put up with all this crap, and then you get crap, you get garbage. Just there's something really wrong with these employers, man, and it is a really unlivable situation to have people like this in charge of working, where when you're so determined to make that extra dollar that you just cannot see the humanity or even the common sense related to, okay, this person needs to do this. They can't get out of it. To hell with them.